ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. I'm so glad that you could join me once more for this story time that is being told. This is just for you, and as I said, it's only for you. And this is Sonewen fella. I'm so glad that we could meet again. I missed you, and I hope you did the same. Today, I'm going to continue from where I stopped in part three, when this young man was placed in jail because he didn't have fares to pay for his trip from Nimba to Sino County, Greenfield to be exact, the capital city. But the next morning, the judge, who was previously or formerly married to his aunt, came back by the cell and saw him in there and asked, "What are you doing here?" And he explained that he didn't have fare, transport fare from Nimba to Sino, so that was why they had him in jail. But anyway, as the story went, he said that he was released by this judge and told to go home. So he did go home, and his aunt saw him and asked how he was set free, and he explained. But then she did call his aunt, who is her younger sister from the Inner Mission School, and she came over and picked him up and took him and enrolled him into school there to continue his education. A few years later, they moved to Monrovia, but he was left in on ENI to continue his studies. When they left, things became more difficult because he didn't have the finances, he didn't have things to support himself, so he had to wait for things to come from Monrovia, if they did come, to see if that could help him out with hygiene stuff and necessary things that he needed. So he continued his studies there until he passed to the 11th grade, and then he moved to Monrovia after his grandmother had passed away. And while he was in Monrovia, he decided that he wanted to talk to his parents, who is his aunt and uncle, to allow him to continue his studies. And it was accepted, so he attended the Haywood Mission High School in Sinker, Monrovia, where he graduated from the 12th grade. And he decided there were days he rode transport bus to go to school, but there were many days when he was at school, there was no money for lunch. While his friends were purchasing hot dogs and burgers and other stuff to eat, he didn't have any money, so he had to go and hide somewhere else, and some good friends will come and give him maybe a Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid was something that they put in a plastic bag, and it got cold and frozen, and then they give that to him to at least eat something, because from morning to late afternoon, he was there without anything to eat. So that was another struggle for him, and this continued for a very long time until he graduated from the 12th grade. And when this individual graduated from the 12th grade, he decided that he wanted to further his education. But in the process, he thought on many occasions to either commit suicide or to go and start to steal or to drink alcohol, because he felt life was just not favorable to him. Things were very difficult. He had one green underwear, and that's all he wore. He wore it during the day. At night, he would wash it and put it behind the refrigerator, and it will dry out. And the next morning, by 4 o'clock, he would get up, weed the grass in the yard where he lived with his aunt and uncle, and he would have to rake the yard, and then before showering and putting on this one old green underwear and with whatever clothes he had, and he would walk miles to get to school. That was very, very hard. And when he even got to school, the Institute of Professional Studies, after graduating from high school, he was now going to the Institute of Professional Studies, where he learned accounting, to become an accountant. And each time he arrived, he had to hide behind the fence of the school in order to dry out, because he was sweaty, he was smelly. And when he did dry out and enter his class, his friends or those who were in class with him would move away from him because of the stench. And that was miserable. That was difficult. It was hard. He was there for a few years, and then he decided to follow his education at an institution called Booker T. Washington Institute in Bon County. But he was let down. He was told that they didn't have money to even send their children to school. How would they ever send me to school? I mean, send this young individual to school. And it was hard for him. He went downstairs and from the upper part of the house where the parents lived, and began to cry. He shed so much tears because he felt there was an obstacle again to at least giving him some life that he wanted to achieve, to accomplish. But it was hard. Um, he cried many times, from when he was growing up till now. He was an adult, and still he just couldn't get things going for him. And in Liberia, to get a job was so difficult. It's more like nepotism, or with, I don't know what I would use the word racism, because racism, maybe people feel as just color, different colors, and the way this color treat this color. But if you're in your own country and you cannot find yourself a job, I don't care what education you have, if you just didn't know someone who was in authority at the time, I tell you, it was almost close to impossible to get a job. He looked for a job many days, for weeks and months, and even the little shoes that he had was now crippled. The heels had worn out, and he was being called rock the boat because of the way his shoes was. His leg was more artificial bow-legged. It was bent because of the shoes that he wore, and that was the only one he had at the time. So he used that as his dress shoes to go to offices and wherever he thought he could find a job, but it never happened. It was so depressing for him. The story, when he on his way from these offices and on his way back to where he lived, he cried and cried and cried, and didn't know where to turn and didn't know what to do. And there were times as I said, he wanted to commit suicide because he thought life was not for him, and maybe when he leave this earth it would be better for him. But it was good that some voice kept telling him to press in and not give up. And it happened that he was not allowed to go to Booker T. Washington, but he decided to go to the University of Liberia to study political science and sociology, because he felt that he wanted to get into business, and if he did, this could help his business and also help him politically to seek offices, or by allowing people to vote him into office. Saying he couldn't get it the other way, he thought maybe being a nice guy and going to learn how to be a politician could help him out in some way or the other. So it was an interesting time where he went through. But he took the exams, the entrance exam at the University of Liberia, and he made it. And he started to go to school, but that was difficult too because he didn't have the fares to transport himself from where he lived to the school, to the university campus, so he had to walk. So it was the same thing all over when he was attending the Institute of Professional Studies. Now he had to walk again, and he was sweaty and smelly. So when he got on the bus to go to the other campus called Fendel, people didn't want to sit around him or even stand around him because of the smell, the stench. But anyway, he attended until 1980, when the Civil War broke out in Liberia. So he had to settle down and not go to school nor any job. And at the time, he had gotten a job with the Special Task Force, which is the police special task force in Monrovia. But to even get that job was a difficult thing. He had to bribe because he was asked to do that. And it took him forever. And fortunately, one day while walking at the bypass, a young man saw him and said, "Hey, you need to go over to the police station." It took months and months, over a year or more. And then he said, "Go to the police station. There is, your name is on a list there for training. You have to go to the police academy to be trained as a police officer." He was struck and he didn't know what to do. But anyways, he found his way to the police headquarters. And when he looked, he saw his name on this list. But now he needed money to buy materials that will help him through the academy, but he did not have it. So he decided to go and beg around and ask and see if there was some possibility of raising some little money from individuals that he knew. But that was a difficult task. He begged and begged, and fortunately for him, there were few people, and his aunt stepped in and helped him out with little money, and he was able to buy those things that the academy requested before he could attend. And he got up 5 o'clock every morning, went and stood at the roadside. At the time, he wasn't living with his aunt and uncle anymore. He was now with his girlfriend, because things were not just favorable there anymore as always. So he had to move on to live with his girlfriend. So she wasn't too far from the University of Liberia, nor from the police headquarters. So he became a special task force officer, and at least he earned some little living to be able to take care of things that he needed to take care of. And the war broke out, and he decided that this wasn't right, it wasn't good. So he decided to flee from Monrovia. But that is will be in part four, the story of his leaving Monrovia for either the Ivory Coast or wherever else he headed to will be in part five. So I appreciate if you could join me again for part five, because this has been a beautiful journey with you, and I'm glad that you have taken the time to watch and to see what's how the story will unfold gradually. But before I leave you, I will ask if you could please subscribe to my channel. Also, I ask that you liked my channel, and then also hit the bell just to let me know that you are part and parcel of this journey. And so whatever new parts that's come about, you will be one of the first that will be notified. So I'm so grateful and thank you. Don't forget, invite your friends, your loved ones, your family members, and to join and to watch and listen to this beautiful story. You're going to have a beautiful ending, and I want you to be a part of it. Thank you, and I will see you soon. Bye.